G'day guys, it's Calvin from the Cartoon Company down under in New Zealand. I've had a little box arrive, well not such a little box, I'd prefer little boxes, but a big box arrived with something that's very shiny in it. This is actually a really interesting part that there's been quite a bit of talk on the internet about it. And I'd actually already arranged to get it. And in some forums, we're not allowed to talk about it. And that's just fine. Everyone's allowed their opinion. So my intention with this video isn't to wind anyone up, isn't to stir the pot. It's not to upset anyone. It's just to show what other products are out there. So everybody can make their own decisions, getting good information. It's like a lot of things that I say. I'll give you the information and then you guys make up your own mind and do whatever you want because it's your car. Just like exhausts, just like thermostats that's coming up, just like a lot of things. And just because we've got different ways of making our cars, of modifying our cars, there's no point fighting because we've all got the same goal. We've all got the same interests. We're all interested in those 1UZ engines, so we can all get along and be mates. I'm going to look over this particular component, and I'm really going to let you make up your own minds what you think of it. So what is it? It's an intake manifold. It's made by clumatetune out of China. I happen to have a mate in China. And so there's a little note in there from my mum as well, from his wife. And I just also like to say that I've got no financial interest in this manifold. Yes, I got a deal on it because of my channel, because I do 1UZs. But I'm going to try to give you a very honest opinion of this and show you about it, and then you can make up your own mind. I'm not getting any kickbacks. I'm not getting any financial reward out of it. There is also plans to make a VVTI one. So this particular manifold is the non-VVTI unit. Okay. So let's get in. So looking inside, if you can see any swarf, let me know in there. There is the welding along the side. Welding onto the bottom plate. There's the bottom plates. So what comes in the box when you get it? The big shiny intake manifold that's in there. There's some hardware that comes with it. 4 spaces for the 2 fuel rails. A braided crossover. 4 screw-in fittings for the end of the fuel rails. A blanker as well. 2 blankers for the port in the bottom of the fuel rail. And also a dash fitting for the bottom of the fuel rail. There are these 4 little brackets for the fuel rails. And there's the 4 bolts there. And unfortunately it appears that 2 of the screws that should have come are missing. So I'm missing 2 of them. There are bolts for the manifold for the center. There's 4 additional ones that I haven't opened up with washers. throttle bracket, throttle cable bracket with 2 screws to bolt them on. Some spare washers and some hose tail fittings for all the different ports around the engine. There is also a throttle body. So that is an 80mm throttle body. And what is quite cool about it, it takes a standard 1UZ throttle position sensor. I was just trying it the other day, and there are in fact a couple of screws in this bag to bolt that on. And there is the O-ring for that throttle body. So as far as setup goes, it looks quite good in the fact that most of the parts are there. A little disappointing I missed 2 screws, but oh well, I'm still not really too worried. Now there are people who are saying that the ports don't match well. We can look at that. Let's have a comparison. So I've got here a standard intake manifold gasket lined up, and as you can see, the intake manifold is smaller than the ports on the cylinder head. Over to the clumatetune one. So correct, the ports don't line up perfectly. However, they line up better than the standard ones. Let's set it onto the engine and see how it looks. So it's nice and light. I probably should weigh it. Now just sitting it on initially, we'll find that just on this water bridge, this is going to need to be relieved. Now as far as the front crossover tube goes, housing goes, you'll notice this one has got a flat piece on it, which is where that manifold is fouling. Old Yeller, by comparison, has a different design. So there are some differences within these crossover pipes that will affect the fitting of the intake manifold. And with the throttle body, it's going to foul on the bleeder on that front thermostat housing where the thermostat sits into. So that is going to need to be cut off. One thing that's a little disappointing with it is the holes onto the head are a little bit floppy. It doesn't help that it's actually sitting up because of that bridge a little bit. Weight. Wonder what the weight difference is. That is like 4.5 kilos. We'll put a throttle body on. About 5 kilograms, right there. One UZ intake. That's with injectors in. Bottom half, we're at 6 kilos. Get rid of that. So we're comparing apples with apples. It's about 5 kilos. We do have an idle speed control unit on the front of this. We're at 10 kilos. We put a throttle body on there. and I can't see, 11 kilos. 11 kilos of intake compared to 5 kilos with the shiny one. So I've showed you the welding, showed you the parts of the kit. Probably should talk about the injectors themselves. It's designed for LS1 injectors, which are a pretty common injector. So I'm in the process of obtaining some suitable LS1 injectors, LS2, whatever, GM style injectors, and we're going to do a fit up of this manifold in another video. I'll trim a thermostat housing and weld it up, and I'll grind up the water bridge. And we'll see what it's like to fit up. Now, do they make any power? Time will tell on a naturally aspirated engine. But I do have a young man over here in the Drift series. He is running one on his turbocharged RX-7, and I will include a video of his dyno run. It is upward of 485 kilowatts of power that this car is making. And he said to me that swapping from the standard intake to the clumatetune, it made more top end power. I've had a couple of customers, and there's a couple of people that I know with these manifolds, and I've asked the same questions. Are you happy with the quality? And all of them, the quality has matched their expectations. One of them wanted a solution for a front-facing intake manifold, and so this is a good solution. It looks taller. That's like 197 millimeters, but the flange actually sits a little bit higher. It's like, and this is the high point on the manifold. On the top of the ribs, 202. The throttle body sits higher. So even though that one looks taller, it actually isn't. And when we're talking about components like this, it's not really fair to compare it to a custom-made race manifold. This is a Chinese intake manifold. We're aware of that. So what can I say myself about this intake manifold? It was as I expected it when I opened the box. It was exactly what I was thinking I was going to get. I knew about the injectors. I didn't know about the cutting of the water bridge or the cutting of the thermostat housing. Those sort of things don't really bother me. It's just part of modifying cars and the industry that I'm in. Dealing with a man from clumatetune, he was very easy to deal with, and we get on very well, and we've chatted, and we've discussed the VVTi manifold going forward. So I'm also quite hopeful that I'm going to get one of those to test in a similar comparison to this. This is just another tool or another solution that we can add to our toolbox. If you want a front-facing plenum, it's something that's out there, and it may solve your problems. Hopefully in the future, I can come up with some videos of comparisons, and we can get some more information. Because I think this video may have actually created more questions than answers. If you've got any experiences with one actually fitted to an engine, I'd love to hear from you. I generally don't do retakes or amendments to my videos, but in the last few days I have had some developments on these said manifolds. I put a post up on my Facebook page, and it included this manifold, and I've left all comments up, both positive and negative, because I'm about having an open discussion. On that discussion, I came across a guy from Central Otago here in New Zealand. He's running a car on methanol with one of these manifolds, and it is making a heap of power. Around the 700 horsepower mark-ish. He's going to give us some speeds down the drag strip at some point. I'm not really a fan of dyno figures because of the different ways of measuring. I've had a dyno, you can pull them down different, get different readings out of them. But what makes a real difference is the real world, how fast they are down a drag strip, and time on the track and results on the track. And it's not always about the most power, of course, in a race situation. So Mark told me, and as I said, his posts are on my Facebook page, on the Cartoon Company 2003 Facebook page, actually on the photo of the manifold. His one needed a little bit of work. Some of the fittings, some of the machining wasn't quite as good as he would have liked. And I also had a comment, I met another guy at the drifting on the weekend, approximately 590 kilowatts, just under 800 horsepower, like 790 something horsepower. And his one actually opened up at the back. He managed to split it open. Big boost pressures. And his one is also an early version of this, of the manifold. One of the reasons I did put up the photos and got a close-up at the beginning and in on the ram tubes inside is I'm quite aware that there are early manifolds out there that weren't as good as the newer ones, and I've definitely improved them. You can just see it by looking at the photos. Either that or I got one of the good ones, but that doesn't stack. And the other guys also agree that the quality is as they expected. Clean, nicely welded, good looking manifolds. Also had, the other one was Jordy Coles on the weekend. His car, stock standard in the porting of the engine, so there's no porting on the engine. I put up a video of it on the dyno, and it's on my Facebook as well, 485 kilowatts. I spent 2 days with the guy. We saw it racing, going well, and then he mentions that it's actually been on the dyno again, around about the 510 kilowatts, which I think is like 680 horsepower at the wheels. The ports are unmodified. It's got a set of cams in it, cam springs. The actual ports have not had material ripped out of them. And again, running the same manifold, and he's been happy with it. So those are real world results. I'm about having open discussions on these, and providing no one's abusive, comments, positive and negative, are staying up. The guys I've talked to are really realistic. The early ones, throttle body upside down to make it work. And again, it's a modification. The engine's getting modified. This is the sort of stuff that guys that modify cars all the time are quite comfortable with doing. We understand it. A lot of the stuff isn't just a straight bolt on, that we have to make changes. I will be doing some fit ups on these, monitoring and showing the processes. So look forward to those. So if you're looking at buying one of these manifolds, when you write your email, tell them you've been watching the video from Cartoon NZ, so that in the future, if there's other products that these guys make, we might be able to get a bit of a deal on it for everyone to benefit. But I hope that was helpful for now. We'll talk to you again soon. Catch you later.